Scott Holiday here, and welcome back to Plus 2 Wrestling. Two things I want to go over before we really get started. One, Stevie Richards just released a video breaking down Shane McMahon's injury at WrestleMania, and in it, he discusses the art of the drop down. And I talked about in my 5 moves I'd like to see wrestlers do more often video, how I'd like to see more successful trips. And then when I watched that video, I went, oh, drop down. That's the word I wanted to use. Drop down. Though Stevie does explain that that is meant to be a trip and you're trying to trip your opponent. So it was nice to see him echo some of the things that I was saying just 2 weeks ago. Last week, however, I talked about the SAG-AFTRA strike and how it's affecting pro wrestling. First, congrats to the Writers Union for figuring everything out. I hope you got everything you wanted. I'm glad the strike is over. Good for you guys. And 2, in that video, I accidentally called Ryan Namath Nick Namath. I think it's because I had just heard about all the releases, so I had Dolph Ziggler on the brain. So my apologies to Ryan Namath. My apologies for Nick Namath. I'm sorry that you got released. I'm sorry to everyone that's been released. I really hope you do something great in the future. I know you will. I look forward to sharing a locker room with you sometime soon. In any case, let's plug in. This very Saturday, September 30th at 1301 South Christopher Columbus Boulevard in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, it is the High Tension Wrestling Super Show. 4 companies coming together to create a fantastic afternoon of wrestling. That is Smashmaster, Orochi, CFU, and High Tension Wrestling. There you will see in our main event, unfortunately, Matt Taven will be unable to make it. So we have quite the matchup for you to replace that, as Mike Skyros will defend the HTW Television Championship against Hot Sauce Tracy Williams. It's going to be a fantastic. I love both the matchups of styles here. I can't wait to see who walks away as High Tension Wrestling Television Champion. Also, the Campeonatos de Ranas are on the line as the outfielders Weber Hatfield and Shay McCoy defend against Ethan Wild LLC. That being Ethan Wild and Brian Ace, who has been taken under the wing of Ethan Wild after being defeated by his trainer, Sonny Defarge. Also, in a CFU match, we have Adina Steele versus the spiteful brute herself, Harleen Lopez, who had this to say.
As little Harleen Lopez was trying to figure out life, a lot of people saw her like a waste of human air. A waste of human space, really. And given, I would be disappointed too. Because little me couldn't even run a damn mile. But most notably, a lot of people took me for granted. But that's not going to be the case this Saturday. On September the 30th, the Spiteful Group makes their grand return to High Tension Wrestling. And if I want to make one thing clear, is that High Tension, the fans, and even my optimistic component at the end of Steel, no matter the outcome, none of them is ever going to take me for granted ever again.
The very next day, October 1st, in the beautiful State Theater in Havre de Grace, Maryland, it is CZW Limelight 21, where the CZW World Heavyweight Championship will be on the line as Rich Swann defends against Griffin McCoy. Griffin McCoy has clawed his way back to being #1 contender and is dead set on proving that it is top guy time. Will we see a brand new CZW World Heavyweight Champion? We'll find out at Limelight 21. And speaking of new champions, we have new tag team champions in Milk Chocolate, the most succulent tag team in all of CZW, and they will be having a championship celebration. So be sure to join us at Limelight 21. Get your tickets now at czwrestling.com. Saturday, October 7th at 2 p.m., Combat Zone Wrestling presents Tournament of Death 20 years of Ultra violence. So get your tickets right now at czwrestling.com and join us at 179 Ebenezer Church Road in Townsend, Delaware. The first round is almost set. We don't know who or invite will face in the first round, but we do know we will have a rematch of last year's final. We will have last year's winner, Bobby Beverly, going one-on-one with Mickey Knuckles, but this time it is a drunken tie-pay death match. Plus, Eric Ryan goes against Slack, and it's a Joe-off. Judge Joe Dredd takes on Big Effin' Joe, who had this to say.
CZW TOD 20, the evolution of fucking deathmatch. Your Anita, your Terry Funk, your Cactus Jack, your Lobo, your Wife Beater, your Nick Mundo, your Big fucking Joe. 20 years I've been watching this shit. 20 years ago, as a 14-year-old kid, I was bootlegging this shit in the UK. Sorry, Johnny Zandig. Sorry, pal. This year, I've got Joe fucking Dredd in the first round. And I heard a story about you, Joe Dredd, on Roberto Black's podcast. Imagine that. XPW and CZW actually fucking get on in 2023. But regardless, on that podcast, I heard that your dad left you in a McDonald's when you were 8 years old. Now, to me, it seems you never left that fucking McDonald's, you fat fucking prick! You want to make a fucking name on Big fucking Joe? Is not fucking happening. This year's my fucking year. TOD 20. Live your best life, die your best death.
This week on the Soapbox, I'm doing something a little bit different. I noticed everybody seems to have an opinion on the Ray Phoenix-John Moxley match that ended with that pile driver. And everyone seems to be saying different things, and I also have an opinion, and this is what it's going to be. It's going to be my opinion on that match. Now, I've taken a listen to pretty much everyone's take on this. I listened to Alvarez, Metzer, Cornette, Dutch Mantel talked about it. Everyone's talking about this pile driver. But there's one thing that I think everybody's missing, so I wanted to take a stab at it as well. Let's take a look at that botched pile driver, and let's talk about this match. Now, before I get into this, Stevie Richards did a fantastic video on this topic, and AEW has been very, very quick to get that taken down. So, from what I've understood from my research, I absolutely 100% cannot show any clips from that match. I don't even think I can show stills from that match. I'm going to try and we're going to see what YouTube allows, but let's talk about that match. And I think the first thing everyone wants to talk about is the pile driver. The pile driver that Ray Phoenix hit that Jon Moxley clearly did not kick out of. I think the question there is, was that a botch? I mean, yeah, clearly. But I think what everyone really keeps debating is that the move that gave Jon Moxley the injury? I don't want to say for sure it's a concussion. I don't know. But from what I'm hearing, everyone kind of keeps saying the same thing. This was a botched move. You can clearly see Moxley's head hit the mat, and you can also see the shoulders compress, which is bad. But everyone is saying that the actual injury took place at the very beginning of the match when Ray Phoenix dove off the stage and flat goes Jon Moxley's head against the cement. That's just a cursed area. Talk to Adam Cole about it. It's a bad thing. Everyone's saying that's where the injury took place. And while I agree, there's a lot of things we got to talk about before we get to the pile driver, because a lot happens in between that moment on the outside and the pile driver that ends the match. And a lot of people have heat towards Phoenix, towards Rick Knox, the referee, and I want to take some time and really break down what happened in this match. After that move off the ramp to the outside, you can tell Mox is not in the right mindset. Everything's a little bit slower. Everything's a little bit less crisp. The announcers even mentioned it. Oh, looks like Mox is dazed. Oh, he doesn't look like he's got his head on straight. This could all be selling. I think we all kind of see that something's not right, but to me, the moment that makes me say, hey, something's wrong, is Mox goes for the cover and does not face the hard cam at one point. And that's not a mistake made because you're selling. Like, you could argue that a lot of the things that happen in this match, he's selling that he's hurt, so that's why everything's a bit slower. But the moment that I rewatched this match and I saw him go for the cover and not face the hard cam, I was like, that's not something that a veteran like Jon Moxley would do. Something seems wrong here. But then, very strangely, this moment happens. They end up on the outside of the ring. And Mox kind of starts hitting a comeback. And he hits a DDT on the outside on Phoenix and flips the double bird into the camera. And from that moment on, it's a brand new Jon Moxley. It's almost like he's not injured. Like maybe he was just selling. But the strange thing that happens during that moment is what Rick Knox does. Phoenix goes to the outside and the camera cuts away. My first thought is, this is a great moment when the camera is not on Moxley, for Moxley to tell Rick Knox that he's injured. Now, I looked for like fan footage to see if I could actually find that moment, to see if anyone captured it. I couldn't find anything online, but a very suspicious thing happens there. While this move is happening on the outside, instead of staying in the ring and doing the count for a count out like a referee should do, Rick Knox jumps down, asks something to both of them. He gets some sort of answer because you see him nod, and then you see him go to his pack and say something back. I believe, if I had to guess, at this point, somebody wanted Knox to check on these two wrestlers. Because if there's a message that is important to have to be told to these wrestlers, you would say it in the ring, not when they're in the crowd and all the fans could hear them, unless it was an emergency. So I'm taking this to mean that somebody wanted Rick Knox to check on the health of these two men. And a lot of people like Alvarez was saying that Rick Knox missed the cues that Mox wanted to lose the match. I don't really know if that's what happened. Like, we as Smarks know what this means, and there was no X in this match. Now, granted, AEW is also a pretty smart company, so I could see them wanting to use different hand signals so that they could fool us Smarks who know all the WWE hand signals. But minus all of that, it seems to me, after this point, where there is a DDT on the floor and then they roll back in, everything's firing on all cylinders again. Everything starts to look like a normal Jon Moxley, Rey Fenix match. Until, oddly, the King Kong Lariat. We see Moxley hit a King Kong Lariat and stand up and kind of yell and then kind of lose focus. It was kind of like when Seth Rollins got really pumped up about his WrestleMania match against Brock Lesnar, and he screamed and he almost blacked out and fell off the stage. Something very similar to that happens, where Mox hits his move, he yells, and then all of a sudden, something's not quite right. We then have another spot on the floor after this moment, where Moxley is against the guardrail, hung underneath it, and Rey Fenix dives off. When this happens, you can see Moxley say something to Rey Fenix. Probably just are you all right? But it was a little bit suspicious. And it's also the moment that they go to commercial. So if the match suddenly needs to end, it kind of can't end now, because we're in picture unless you're watching it on Fight, like I was. If you watch it on Fight, there's actually a very strange moment where both of them are laying on the ground. Knox is out there, like during the original maneuver, doesn't do like the hand squeeze, but does kind of check on both, then goes in and starts the count, and somebody yells, check if they're okay. Not check if one of them's okay. Because at first I thought it was Alex, who's the manager for Rey Fenix, saying like, check if he's okay, he's my guy. But check if they're okay makes me think that somebody, somewhere, thought maybe both or one of them were hurt. And there's a request for Knox to do something about it, which he doesn't do. Let's get through all of this. Mox is basically doing all the offense after this, though. When they get back into the ring, Mox is pretty much in control for a lot of this. There is a Death Rider that Rey Fenix kicks out of, and then a long kind of rest hold, but a Texas Cloverleaf. If at any point up to this point that Moxley thought he was hurt, he honestly believed that he should not be continuing. It surprises me that he would continue this match at this quality for so long and not come up with an idea, if they needed to end this match early, to do a DQ, to do a quick roll-up. But to continue on like this, yes, I agree that Mox is hurt at this point, but I think Mox is not at a point where he thinks he can't continue. I think that moment does happen on the Piledriver. Now, let's talk about the Piledriver, because there were some very interesting things said about this Piledriver, and like I said, I can't show clips, but don't worry, I have action figures. So for this, the part of Jon Moxley will be played by Blaster from Double Dragon. I don't remember him either. And the part of Rey Fenix will be played by Havoc of the X-Men. Now, the way this Piledriver works is you're set up on the shoulders with the feet dangling on this side. Now, normally, you would think that this would be safer, because when you fall, there is more distance between your head and the ground, because your legs are across your opponent's shoulders. And on top of that, with your legs being across the shoulders like this, not all of your weight is being driven on the top of your head. I found out through research that that is not true. According to Jim Cornette, who I'm not a huge fan of, he has wished death upon me before, but for a man who's wished death upon me, I can admit he's often correct. He claims that the spike Piledriver, with your feet straight up in the air, like this, is actually safer for a couple reasons. It allows better control from both men. Rey Fenix in this scenario could hold Mox a little bit stronger, and you might notice this like wraparound that you tend to see with Piledriver. You might remember that the Owen Hart Stone Cold Piledriver looked like this, because this move has been compared to the Owen Hart incident, or the Owen Hart Austin incident, many times. Really, your hands should not be wrapped around like this. They should actually be on the thighs, like this. I really wish I could show clips too. Because when you then drop down, you have your hands on your opponent's thighs and can push off and keep your head safe. You have more control in a Piledriver in this position with your feet straight up in the air than you do with your legs across the shoulders, because you're in a more awkward position and you have to rely on your opponent more to keep you safe. I was surprised by that as well. Hits this Piledriver, and Mox doesn't kick out. Now, a lot of people really are upset at Rick Knox for this. And as someone who trained as a referee, there's a few things I want to mention that I really haven't heard anyone mention, and that's why I'm making this video. One, if it is not the finish, I was always taught that your 3 counts should always be consistent, whether it's the finish or not. Like, you should always have the same amount of time. However, if it's not the finish, it should always be 1, 2, 3. The swipe. The swipe is a move that brings your hand up very quickly so it doesn't make a noise. If the opponent absolutely does not kick out, you can still say, my hand hit, and keep all of the credibility. But if the person kicks out late, which has happened to me quite a few times, you are able to go, swipe. Ooh, so close. It was so close. And the fans might say like, oh no, it looked like it was pretty close. But you don't get the noise because you swipe. It makes it a little bit more believable. That is way better than this move. I don't know where that was coming from. The other thing that I find very interesting, and I think this is the main crux of the miscommunication. When Knox is bringing his hand down for the final 3 count, right about here, Jon Moxley opens his eyes. Now, usually, when you want the ref to count to 3, you close your eyes to let the ref know it is okay to count to 3. If I had to guess, it seems to me like Knox was counting, and as he was coming down, saw Mox's eyes open and took that as a symbol of he's going to kick out, and then he didn't kick out. I think Knox still screwed up here, and I know everyone else is saying that as well, but I do want to say that tiny moment, I do feel for Rick Knox. As a referee who's screwed up before, I feel for Rick Knox. I will say that I do not believe that, as Stevie Richards says, that after this happens, that Mox says, give me another one. I'm pretty sure he tells Knox to F off. I've watched it many times. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening there. I also think that it was irresponsible to hit that move again. You're Rey Fenix. You could hit a splash, which would be much safer than hitting another pile driver. I do not believe, based on the way that he got up, that Mox was unable to kick out. I don't think that it was a situation where that he got hit with that and it was a stinger or he was actually unconscious for a moment. I think the way that Mox responded by cursing off the referee, he was aware that he was in a bad way and wanted to lose. But I don't think he was in a situation where he lost the ability to like feel his fingers and arms and get his shoulder up. That is just a guess, though. This is me speculating. Just because he was able to get up with ease, but like he wasn't dragged to his feet. And the reason I'm bringing that up is Mox did not stop the pile driver either. Like, I don't think he asked for it, but it's not like he was dead weight and Rey Fenix muscled him up. It looked to me like two guys working together to perform another maneuver. So there was a lot of problems here and a lot of things I learned about the pile driver that I wanted to bring on to you. A big thing that I kept hearing people say was Mox tried to communicate to Knox that he wanted to lose. But like I said, throughout the match, Mox is kind of in control of the match. Like, that was kind of a rough flurry from Rey Fenix to kind of make a comeback. I will say all of Phoenix's moves are kicks to the head, which sucks if you're Jon Moxley and you're clearly injured. I think, more importantly, this looks less like the Austin Owen pile driver that everyone's comparing it to, and more like the Sammy Guevara Matt Hardy spot, where clearly Matt should not have continued the match, and yet they did. I really would have liked to have seen a little bit more care taken for both of these men throughout the match. I watched this match a few times, and I just kept looking for, like, the squeeze, the Iggy. Like, just a quick, like, hey, John, you okay? And I never saw that ever. And granted, this could be AEW, again, trying to be a smarter company and using different ways of signaling, because that's a thing that all us smart marks know already. But overall, I feel like everyone watching that match knew something was wrong, even before that kick out. And hopefully AEW gets better at kind of taking care of those types of things. So that's just my quick analysis. I wanted to kind of condense what everyone was saying into one video. And sorry for the lack of media during this. In any case, what did you think of the botched pile driver? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's Mox's fault? Do you think it's Phoenix's fault? Do you think it's the ref's fault? Or do you think it's everybody's fault? Somebody's clearly at fault. Throw blame around down in the comments down below. And I hope you have a great day.